Don't laugh at me, Steve.
I wouldn't believe it if I didn't see it. We have just learned that Godzilla has made landfall. Buildings throughout the city are being damaged. I don't know how much damage this building can take and still remain standing. This is incredible. Utterly incredible.
Godzilla, here we go.
The bridge is down. Will Godzilla be able to stop Mechagodzilla?
This game is good.
This building is on its last leg. Reports are coming in that Godzilla may be making his way to another city. Godzilla has entered Tokyo Bay. Godzilla has returned. We can only speculate as to where Godzilla will strike next.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to a very special episode of PinTech Live, where we'll be diving deep into Godzilla Premium with lead engineer Harrison Drake. Harrison, thanks for joining us.
Yep, anytime.
Anytime, yes.
Every time we've asked you to join us, you have joined.
Gets me out of my Thursday meetings, let's put it that way.
Awesome. So for those who don't know who Harrison is, can you give us a little brief introduction when you started working for Stern and how and what games you've done so far?
Yeah, so this is my fourth game at Stern. I've basically done all the Keith's games at Stern, right? So I started with Iron Maiden, rolled on to Jurassic Park with them, then Avengers, and here we are with Godzilla.
That's awesome. Do you have a favorite game you've worked on so far?
Godzilla takes the cake. There's the amount of mechs on this thing, it was a real pleasure to work on.
It just keeps getting better and better and better. Yeah, y'all's games are awesome. So everyone in the chat, thank you for joining us. Feel free to drop your questions in the chat. A little bit later, we'll be pulling those questions and asking them to Harrison for you with discretion. And then also every 30 minutes, we'll be doing a giveaway for some cool Godzilla swag. I just dropped the sign up link in the chat right over there. Sign up. You only have to sign up once, and in 30 minutes, we'll take a little break and spin the wheel and see who our special winner is. So this first prize is for a Godzilla banner. Those giant promo banners that look great next to your games.
Super cool.
All right, I'm done. Kyle, take it away.
All right. Harrison, how are you?
I'm good. How you doing, Kyle?
Pretty good for a Thursday. Let's jump back because even though we've kind of had this conversation once when you were in here for Avengers, when did you start at Stern and what was your position when you joined the pinball world?
Yeah, so I started June of 2017. It was kind of my first day there. I was working in the automotive industry, and I knew Elliot at Stern already, and wanted out of that job, wanted something new, and Elliot's like, hey, come work for Stern. So that was right around the time that George was spinning up Team Elwyn, right? So Keith had started in March of 17-ish, around there. I started June, and then Rick got hired right in end of July. So the three of us all started fresh into the game production side of the pinball world. Me new to pinball entirely, and started on Iron Maiden and shipped that about 9 months later. And that has just kind of been this never-ending cycle of the three of us working together until Godzilla.
Well, to great result. I think everyone can say that.
Can you explain to everyone like what the job tasks are for a lead engineer?
Yeah, so it depends game team to game team, but the way I like to pitch it is we bridge the gap between the designer and actually putting the thing down the line. So wherever their creativity takes them, we're there to kind of help put some level of guardrails on to make sure we can actually build the thing in our factory. Whether that's, working out what mechs are possible, how to accomplish them, pointing out things that maybe break the laws of physics, that sort of thing. And then we end up taking their, it can be anything from like literally Sharpie on a napkin, right, to fully detailed AutoCAD. We'll take whatever that is, whatever they hand off to us, essentially close the gap to putting it in a box. So that's sort of our role.
In non-engineer speak, you turn dreams into reality.
Yeah. The old job. I think we saw this in the Avengers stream too, right? Was the job title's actually Dream Maker?
Yeah. So, in the sense, lead engineer on a project, that doesn't mean that you are the sole engineer on the project, correct?
Yeah, so we have a lot of different disciplines involved here. So, like the cabinet's a standard thing, right? So like Tom Capera and George worked on that. That kind of carries over game to game. Mm-hmm. Specifically to Godzilla, yeah, I was the only engineer that worked on like game-specific mechs for this, but we also have a full electrical engineering and cable design department. We've got, probably 6 or 7 software engineers that touch this thing at various levels. And then, there's the common stuff, right, that, other engineers have worked on over the 30 plus years of Stern history.
Yeah, for the common things like slingshots and flippers and upkickers and stuff like that.
That's a go grab it off the stealth mech, right? That's, where do you want it? It's here. Okay, that's easy. It's all the new mech development that's where, my talents, I think, shine or don't shine. I don't know.
That's where the Dream Maker comes in, to be able to make a collapsible building that a ball can go through and also hold balls inside of a pinball machine. Yeah, I'm excited to take a look through some of this stuff. We kind of counted it first off, or you told Emoto, I think, but there are, aside from, ball, habit trails and stuff, we've got 5 pretty unique things in this game that do not exist in any other game. Do you want to list them off for us? You can tell us their official
I can go through the bullet point list. So the building's the big obvious one. There's been a lot of references to Doctor Who, but I think this is a different spin on it, right? It's, ramps don't go through Doctor Who's, right? It's Doctor Who's more about 3 mechs that change out. What we were going for this one was something that actually changes the state of play and can tell a story, right? So collapsing building, Godzilla, it's a no-brainer. Immediately to the left of that, right, we got our the collapsing bridge. The same thing, right? Godzilla's running through cities, destroying stuff. He can destroy a bridge, right? Then below that, we have Magna Grab, which this was actually something that came off the Avengers playfield. It was originally going to be for Thor, but Keith and I just could not get that mech to work in that location. Basically, it needed to be on the opposite side of the dots for it to work as intended, or be fed from the opposite side. So we can touch on that later. Then we got the Mechagodzilla Magnet Kit. That actually started life as a Walking Dead well walker. And kind of the tweak on that was, let's jam a magnet in it. There's a scene from the movie where Godzilla and Mechagodzilla are fighting, and they end up actually like magnetizing stuff to each other. So like that'd be really cool in a game. And then from that same scene, right? Mechagodzilla's got his shield that he brings up when he's being attacked. So Keith sketched up this idea for a 3-bank of targets that moved and revealed a ramp, and that's how that became the Roto 3-bank. That's how we call it, Roto 3-bank. So yeah, those are kind of the big 5.
Okay.
So
yeah, I think that's the neat thing you mentioned, like how these devices can aid in the storytelling. And in a pinball world, right, it changes the way the game plays, right? When the building moves up and down a level, it will change the direction it will send the ball after it has left the ramp. It is neat how you can use one piece of real estate on a pinball playfield, which is something that's generally static, right, to have 2 different effects. Bash these targets, and as this, Roto 3-bank moves, it then turns into a total different objective to hit that shot clean and jump the ramp. Right. It's pretty neat. I think this game does have a lot of special things that other games do not have, and like I said, I can't get my words quite around it, but the transformation between something that's generally really static to something a little more dynamic. I hate that word, but that's the best I can come up with right now. It's pretty neat. What do you want to go over first? I have my favorites. What is your favorite thing that you put into this game?
So I'm actually a big fan of the bridge.
Okay.
You think it's the building because it's the centerpiece and it's got my name on it, but no, the bridge is that's kind of my favorite thing.
It's pretty neat. I mean, let's get up and take a look-see at it here. Are you ready to do that, Emoto, or?
Yeah, let's do it. I would love to.
Let's take a look. I want to try to figure out, I mean, the thing is like, there are multiple places we need to look at it, but let's...
Yeah, most of the magic's actually topside on that thing. Under the playfield, it's literally just a single coil bracket.
Let me see if I can get it into test and see if I can get that thing to fire without having to like hold the playfield in a weird way. 1 sec.
Hello, everybody.
Bridge.
Thanks for joining us. We're looking at the Godzilla Premium today.
So, Emoto, see if you can kind of focus in on this guy right here.
All right.
It's a little difficult, but Harrison, do you actually, in fact, do you have the CAD drawing of this guy here?
I do. I believe I opened it. Yes, I do.
Let's take a look at that first. Let's look at it on the computer, and then we'll show it in real life, just because I think it'll be easier to translate what is going on that screen.
See if I can turn.
And I want to look at the computer, too. It's so the bridge is one of the feeds out of the building, and in its normal state, it will transport the ball to the ramp. But if Godzilla smashes the bridge, it will then keep that ball from going into the flipper in lane and dump it right into one of the orbits. So.
Oh wait, I have to screen share, don't I? Hey.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, sorry. There we go.
No, it's okay.
Nice. All right, I'm gonna switch some. Let's do this.
So, for the uninitiated, what do we have going on here?
Yeah, so this is a pretty, it's one of those mechs that's got big effects, but it's actually pretty simple under the hood. So the whole thing's powered by just a single down push coil that's under the playfield, right? So you pull on this, bridge animates. The trick of this thing is how we got both sides to work at the same time. So if you actually spin it around, it's literally just a giant 4-bar linkage. So when you pull down, the link pulls directly on the left half of the bridge here, and there's a link to tie over the motion to the right side. And then it's just kind of kinked so you can't see it, so it's in like a blind spot to the player. So it's a pretty straightforward mech. The reason I'm kind of proud of this thing is when Keith had concepted this thing, he actually bought a toy set, like a Godzilla, tiny 4-inch tall Godzilla toy set. And in that toy set was this blue bridge that you could have Godzilla go over and destroy, right? And one day he walks over to my desk and sets this thing on my desk and goes, "I want a bridge that blows up like this. Go." Part of the left ramp. So from there, it was basically just clean sheet of paper, figure out how to do it. So this is actually some really old Jeremy concept work when him and I were working on plastic tapes, if you can see on here. But yeah, so from there, it was basically just, I don't want to have a 2-coil mech. Where this thing ends up in the playfield, I can't actually get a second coil down to actuate just the right side.
Okay.
So logic would reason, right? I have to mechanically tie the two together, so when I fire one, it fires the other. Knowing that was going to be a ramp diverter as well, it became pretty obvious the left side, which is down ramp, had to be the one that goes up, right when it goes down. From there, I just started sketching the ramp out.
It's so neat. I think that's the bit of engineering. I don't know. To you, I think most engineers think the same, but taking something complicated and trying to execute it as simple as possible. Is that exciting to you, or do you like to design grandois and?
Yeah, no, that's honestly the challenge of a pinball engineer job, right? It's establishing what the designer actually wants versus what they're saying they want.
Okay.
So it's really, you can get something crazy, like a designer comes up and I want Mothra to fly around the playfield and go to these 7 locations, and it's okay, so which ones are you actually going to use? Which ones are actually going to end up in gameplay? And then when you realize it's these 3 or 4 spots, you can back calculate what a linkage or a mech like that would look like. So it's distilling the raw creativity down into something that you can actually build. Sure. That's kind of the challenge. Once you get that down and you have your requirements, it's pretty easy to translate it to something that'll accomplish those goals.
It's so cool. I like the Dream Maker thing. I just keep thinking that that's what your official nickname needs to be or something.
I've tried to get business cards reprinted, but I still have 200 something to go through like engineer. So.
Well, shucks, I think I might need a few business cards. I can tell you where to send them. You can deplete them pretty quick. In our test, it's going to be really quick. Emoto, do you want to put that tripod camera up really quick? And I can just fire the coil a few times. You can kind of gently work it
absolutely.
by hand to see what happens.
Do you need me to stop sharing?
Yes. Yeah, you can stop sharing. Oh gosh.
Look, there's everybody.
Don't look.
Yeah, everyone, stop looking.
Don't look. Wait, what if I hide that? Oh my God.
So we started using OBS recently, and now we have to unlearn how to use Streamlabs and relearn how to use OBS. So we're working on some transitions. I see it now, and I totally thought that this was the Mechagodzilla, sorry, just to bring up another topic, was the Well Walker. But the only difference is in The Walking Dead, right, the ball will hit something, and that hits an angled plate under the Well Walker, right? And that's what forces that guy to jump backwards.
Yeah, that's how that one works. Just because of where the height ended up, they had a little plate there just to deflect that force more into a rotational force.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, and then the Well Walker actually has a switch under the plate that it rests on, so when it lifts off, that's how it soars.
Okay.
With this, we have the spinner entrance switch, so we can just time everything off that.
That's neat. Okay, here, we're gonna. I'll pulse this coil a few times. It's a little dark. Wait, I could turn the light up a little, huh?
Yeah, turn the light up.
And then we can show what it looks like underneath too. Again, simple, but the effect is wonderful. Oh God, did that happen so fast it didn't even show up?
Yeah, you can move it by hand too. It'll be fine. Left side, yeah, there you go.
When one side goes down, the other comes up. The linkage was much better seen in the CAD drawing, but there is one, was that like a Delrin arm or something like that links
Yeah,
them?
it's just a little, it's just a little Delrin link that goes over.
Let me show underneath really quick too. Ugh. Lift this guy up. I guess actually you can kind of see a bit of the linkage once the playfield is up a little bit as well. So you've got your, oh, sorry, I'm looking at the computer to see what's going on. You've got your coil here, which pulls down on said linkage. And when this motions down, this arm pushes here, and that's what forces that side.
Cool.
Yeah, it's so elegant, it's ridiculous. It's pretty cool. I think we should move from left to right. My favorite thing on this game is probably the simplest effect, but it makes me giddy, is the Magna Grab. The Magna Grab, I think, is absolutely the coolest thing in the game. Just because it just makes the ball, it's so satisfying to nail that thing, have it grab and whip the ball around. Can you explain what is going on here with the Magna Grab, Harrison?
Yeah, so it's it's actually more straightforward than you might think. Basically, we just took a playfield magnet and brought the core through the playfield. That's pretty much all it is, functionally. So originally, again, this was originally on Avengers. It was the Thor captive ball set.
Okay.
We wanted some sort of lightning magnet effect over there. But Keith and I probably went through, 5 or 6 iterations of that thing. It originally looked like a ball, right? That had to go. Basically, we were losing too much magnetic flux in that transition. It was just a raw core, then the ball stuck to it. Then we were trying to do this the diversion effect, right, where it rolls back and gets thrown over. But that's when we actually decided to cut it, because we realized if we're actually going to do this well, we need to be having the ball roll down the ball guide that's in contact, that's like next to the magnet, not the other side of the shot.
Okay.
You just get a way stronger pull when it's that much closer. So Avengers, we ended up pulling it there. It's like we'd rather ship this thing when it's ready than ship a half broken mech just to put it on the feature matrix, right? So we pulled it there. Then when Godzilla came up, there was I think once we understood where it had to go on the playfield, it got reintroduced back into this game. And Keith's big thing was he wanted to be able to catch. It wasn't even intended to do the little diversion effect. It was actually supposed to be catching the ball off that left spinner shot that goes behind the left flipper.
Uh-huh.
So the original intent was fire through the left spinner shot, catch the ball there to set up the upper left flipper, and go from there. Geometrically, it ended up being the exit to the building. So then Rick was messing around with it for the first time. He actually just sent us a video of this little flick effect where you could grab the ball and with timing, throw it over the left dot. And once we saw that, how reliable and repeatable it was, that actually became the primary function of that toy.
Nice.
So then, I mentioned earlier the ball sticking to the core issue. So that's actually why it's a 2-part cap now.
Okay.
We realized this actually came up on the Avengers Tower as well. That some of the magnetic locking we get when a pinball actually touches a magnet core directly is because of that direct contact. If you can get a little bit of a non-ferrous separation layer in there, you'll eliminate all of the magnetic locking effects you get.
Okay.
So that cap is stainless steel, right? It's still permeable, but it's not actually ferrous.
Mm-hmm.
So the ball only touches stainless, even though the magnetic steel can go through that material, which prevents the direct pinball on magnet core contact.
So
does the magnet go all the way through? Is there what's on the bottom of it?
Yeah, I was just about to try to explain what a magnet core is, so people who don't know, as most people know, right? Like a solenoid is essentially a magnet, and when there are electromagnets used in pinball all over the place, here is an electromagnet, right? So.
Are you gonna show it with the handheld camera?
Yeah, I'll try to brace it so it's not super shaky, but we've got our electromagnet. Oh, crud. Oh, there it goes. Electromagnet here, all right? Then you've got this bracket which holds a steel core, and this is what Harrison is talking about. So this this metal core, right? It's got a flat head machined into it. That goes up through the playfield. So when this magnet energizes with the help of one of our handy-dandy transistors, that will magnetize said core, and that is where you get those magnet effects. Yeah. So again, it's simple, elegant.
There's also another subtle thing down there. So if you notice, we actually went back to the old Williams-style bracket for that magnet.
Yeah.
With the single-side mount. The reason for that, right, is again to do with the magnetic strength, right? If you can focus your magnetic flux up through the playfield with the core, you actually need to give it a place to return back to the magnet. It has to create a circuit, even if that circuit goes through air. So we went back to the single-sided bracket because that meant all of the magnetic field got concentrated to one side of the magnet assembly, which will increase the hold strength and catchability of the magnet on that one side. So that very specific angle we dialed in to get the ball to rest in the middle of the magnetic field to make and improve the upper left flipper setup.
So that's the next thing I was going to ask. That's incredible. I never thought about that, and I've just learned something that was mind-blowing. But what? So the rotation of this single-sided bracket, if you were to put this 180 degrees, the ball would want to stick where the base of this bracket is due to whatever effect you were just explaining?
Yeah. So that's where it's going to get pulled to, right? It's trying to go to its lowest magnetic field potential spot, right? I don't know if that's the right physics term, but so yeah, you can actually unscrew that bracket, screw it in 20 degrees over further, right? And the ball will now stop at a different location.
Dang. That's incredible.
When you go to our the Stern style double-sided mount bracket that you'll see on tons of other games.
Yeah.
That's actually more for an omnidirectional magnetic field, right? Where you want to catch from all 360 degrees. Because this only had to catch from one or two spots and stop the ball in one spot, we went back to the old style bracket.
That's incredible. That's a really neat physics lesson. Can you explain also, maybe in more elegant terms than I can, because there are two effects that this magnet grab will do as well, right? It will hold the ball. The magnet will energize and hold the ball to set up for that left flipper, but there's also a way for it to kind of flick the ball around. And that is done with the timing and quick energizing of the magnet. Can you explain that better than I could?
Yeah, so that's actually, it's really simple. Basically, we look at the entry switch for the building, and there's a roll under gate on the left side of the building.
Okay.
And based on the delta, the time between the entry switch and the exit switch, we know how fast the ball's going.
Yep.
And then Rick can calculate before it hits the magnet when to fire the magnet, how long to hold it, and when to release it to do the flick over to the left dot.
That's really neat. I think Data East did a really similar thing with... have you ever played the game Checkpoint?
I've not, no.
There's a really funny effect where it says, a laser chronometer, and when you hit the left ramp, it's supposed to give you how fast you hit the ball. And I'm pretty sure just measuring the delta between the I made the entrance and I've made it up the ramp switch, it gives you just an arbitrary number, 250 miles an hour.
Yeah, right.
And that's kind of funny. Those little timings can be so powerful.
Yeah. You can actually do it with one switch. We just didn't because it's more reliable with two. But if you look between when it opens and when it closes, you can actually calculate that too.
That's really neat. And it took me a while to figure out how the game was figuring out that I was nailing this the magnet as well. But it's just simply a Newton ball, right?
Yep. It's just straight up a Newton ball. The world's shortest Newton ball, as far as I know.
Yeah.
There's only an 1/8 inch for the ball to travel back there.
But
it's just enough to actuate the 1/2 inch stand-up target that's back there.
Gotcha. Yeah, if you don't know what a Newton ball is, it's an effect where hitting a stationary object will transmit some. You're an engineer. You should explain this.
Yeah, it's you know those Newton's cradle where it's
Yeah.
like the 5 balls on the strings. It's that exact effect.
So it's a common fun thing, but it's done really elegantly here. And again, the way the stage dressing is done with the bridge being above it and a plastic above the whole thing. It feels like magic. You hit it and it knows. But now we've just broken the magic. So I guess that's kind of what this show is we kind of break the magic of pinball by explaining how it all works.
But we want to know. We're curious.
Yeah, Harrison is the dream maker, and we are the dream destroyers. So
Ooh.
I guess we're a good combo. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, that's really fun. I think for people that have played this game, I don't know, maybe I'm just easily entertained, but the game whipping the ball around with the magnet is very fun. Now we get to the center. Oh,
Before we get to the next mech we want to look at, we're going to do our giveaway. This is for I almost said Jurassic Park. Oh my goodness.
Oh.
Godzilla banner.
Jeez.
All right. So everyone that signed up for the link, if you didn't sign up, don't worry, because in 30 minutes we'll do another one. But I do have a bunch of names here, so y'all are the lucky ones. I'm going to run the wheel. Let's see who our winner is.
Did you put your name in, Harrison?
I did not.
Oh. Is there like something
Actually, all the
in...
employee banners just showed up like 2 days ago. So I have to go pick mine up.
Oh, wow. And the winner is Colin Baxter.
Oh, this is rigged. Colin, gee, no, I'm just kidding.
Should
Congrats,
I
dude.
I don't think he's ever won on our show. He just happens to be present on all of our shows.
If there's anyone that deserves to win.
Shoot me an email to marcotv@marcopinball.com with your shipping address, and we'll send you that banner.
That rules.
Kyle will.
Yeah. I also have more stuff to send you, but we'll talk about that later.
All right, thanks, everyone. In about 30 minutes or so, we will do another one for some Marco swag, T-shirt and a hat.
Nice. Speaking of Jurassic Park, have you played Jack Danger's Jurassic Park, Harrison?
I have, yeah. I was that was getting built right next to this thing the whole time.
Oh, really? Well,
Yeah.
It's a fun game. It shoots really fun. It's got, again, some simple things that just make it an exciting game.
Yeah, it's the perfect ELG, right? Or well, we call it ELG, perfect home edition.
Okay, what's ELG?
ELG is entry level game.
entry-level
It's like
game.
a sales
Yep.
marketing term. Yeah.
Yeah, entry level. I mean, shucks. If
I
someone,
think it's a little bit beyond that. It's just a good game. Right?
it's just a
It's
good
just
game.
a good game, yeah.
I think if you stripped away the fact that it's marketed as an entry-level game, etc., it's just a good game. Anyways, let's go back to Big Boy Godzilla.
And everyone, for the random drawing giveaway, I reposted the link. If you have already signed up, you do not need to sign up again. And for those of you wondering, yes, we do have a coupon shipping code today. It's PT-Mothra, all uppercase. And that, of course, is for free domestic shipping and $10 off international shipping for orders over $99. And they're only available for 24 hours. So that info is in the chat. And yes, that is all.
That is all. Buy some parts.
Sorry. That was your commercial break. I hope everyone got their drinks and popcorn re-upped during that.
I sure did.
Are we going to the building now? You're touching the building, the skyscraper.
I think so. I think Harrison should give us there has to be some...
His skyscraper.
It is. It actually is his
My
building.
investment company's headquarters, if you will. Yeah.
Yeah. Mechanical engineering and investments all in one.
That's so good.
So, I mean, I'm sure that as you guys were theory crafting this, I mean, there was always, there had to be a centerpiece, right? Was this always the centerpiece?
Yeah, actually. This was like one of the first things that Keith, concepted, the first things I was working on.
Okay.
This was the mech, basically this mech, I got the first working one working before Avengers had shipped. Basically the concept is a linear moving platform, right? Once we had that figured out that was going to work, The whole rest of the game got designed around this. So the intersecting ramps, there was originally only one, then it became two. The lock dot, that was something Keith and I had worked on like over Zoom during quarantine, right? Was basically, what are all the features of this thing? What will it do in the game? What's possible? So yeah, basically came up with that, figured out, yeah, we're going to do this, and the whole rest of the game fell into place around it.
Wow.
I mean, I guess I'm trying to think like of other games that have like a main feature that the game is seemingly built around. In thinking about games that you've worked on, I mean, the one that I can really think of is maybe Jurassic Park, but the T-Rex head is striking, but it's not necessarily that the game doesn't feel built around the T-Rex head.
Yeah, right.
Was it? Do you feel like this came together quicker and more elegantly when you had to build around something that was static, or?
I mean, that's probably really a question for Keith.
Yeah.
I know, once you had a mech like that you knew was going to work, right? It was easy to just start adding more and more features onto it as well, right?
Sure. So was the rate of things he was asking to add on to the game quicker or slower than most other projects?
No, it was a lot of natural additions, right? Like, okay, now we have a building, we got a ramp going through it. What happens? We have two ramps going through that. Maybe now they crisscross. When we were laying it out too, the ball lock was not part of the scope at all. There was going to be a whole separate lock system that he had napkin drawn up.
Okay.
But really, we're looking at this thing and it was becoming so cool that we're like, we have to put a lock system in this thing, right? This thing has to be the ball lock. So from there, we had a lot of discussions about like what each floor does. I checked, we actually have room on the top floor to put the balls just above everything we were already doing. So then it became a question of how to get the balls up there. So it's I'm like, cool, simple. We're just going to blow a hole through the play field and throw a VUC on the back panel and call it good, which is all that really is. So there's like a 4-inch subway to get it under that orbit, but pretty straightforward. Really, though, a lot of the meat and potatoes development on the thing became like, what does the lock progression look like for the player?
Okay.
Right. So that's always the Medieval Madness Castle is like the king of this, right? It's, bash on the door, drawbridge comes down, bash on the gate opens, shoot in, right?
Sure.
Like Castle. It's not quite a lock, but there's a natural, intuitive progression.
Like the steps, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
We were trying to do the same thing with this. So it's like, okay, you're Godzilla flying around a city, keep hitting this building. Well, the building has to crumble at some point, right? Which is why, when it drops the first floor, that's the building starting to collapse. You keep attacking it, that's your lock balls, and then once you hit it enough times, multi-balls start, right? So for us to hone in on that sequence was probably the most challenging part of it. There was a couple of versions of that building that had like a drop target in front of them. That became a bash toy. That was attack from Mars. We cut that.
Yeah.
At one point, there was a diverter inside the first floor that like went to like a basement floor into the subway.
Huh.
If that makes sense.
Sure.
Which that was actually pretty challenging to do because when we lift the hood on this thing, we'll see the motion system. Then there was another one where we like went to floor 2 and then a drop. It was crazy. Basically, it was a whole bunch of stuff that didn't make sense from player progression standpoint. So we ended up cutting it all and going with what you see on the game.
Do you think was it a case of too much does not necessarily mean better?
I wouldn't say too. I mean, the drop target that was really close to making it. No, it's just what leads to the most fun experience. And once Keith realized, make the shot narrower than the entrance, right? Well, that's why there's blue pads up there.
Yeah.
We can tie a roll to, bashing the building for 1x damage versus, making the shoot through shot for 3x. That little challenge became pretty fun. So that's why the drop target got removed, right? Is we came up with that shot geometry, that player with a flipper challenge instead of just, bashing on a target so many, X number of times.
Sure. Yeah. No, that makes sense. It is that's interesting hearing the progression through the building because it is, or rather the revisions that you guys built of it, because what we're left with is something that is it is mysterious, right? It is enclosed and you don't know what's going on inside of it. There's always that bit of pinball magic and what I always like to call choreography that is so difficult to nail down, right? Like simply explaining in Medieval Madness how intuitive it is to nail that door, right? Or nail the drawbridge, it comes down, you nail the door, you get it in, success. And it is hard to program in something that is intuitive, right? It has to just be intuitive.
I mean, that's where the theme comes in, right? You need something.
Yes, very much so.
Like you could make a mech that basically just says the Medieval Madness castle, but because it's a castle, you know what to do, right?
But we know because as we are playing a game based on Godzilla, what happens in all these Godzilla movies? There is always a battle scene of destruction, and we know it's like, well, maybe I should need to hit this, and I think that's it comes through really clear. But it is one of those fun things where the first time I step up to this game and I got to play it, it was, well, what's it going to do? You know, not only do I need to hit this to progress through the game, but I want to continue interacting with said toy to see what it will do, right? That's the most exciting part of pinball, right? Anywho.
And that's what's cool about it too, right? Is like, there's secrets that keep getting revealed with it, right? So like once you progress the lock, yeah, sure, it opens up the lock shot, but it also then changes the ramps, which has nothing to do with the lock rules.
Sure. Right? Yeah. On your SolidWorks drawing that we're about to pull up, does that show? Will you be able to like see the pathing?
Yeah, I can try to get you guys a.
Well, and I guess like we just saw in the video.
Yeah, you pull that up. Well, look at why he's pulling that up. Okay.
Oh, sure.
That was a little bit more seamless.
That was beautiful.
Wow, look at that. I love the details you can put in it too. Look at that carpet.
That pop-up.
If anyone's opened a manual, this view probably looks pretty familiar. So like this is kind of this is the cake, right? So there we go. So you got your 4 floors, right? You got your roof, right? Pretty straightforward. This is actually a very intentional design. It let us reorder the building floors during development to kind of tune in the flow we wanted, right? You know, it was the X ramp before the U-turn ramp, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. So first floor, this is what's normally presented to the player. So this is just a continuation of that dot that comes around the building. So it'll kind of hook left, come out by the magnetic Newton ball. That's it. That's the default state. Once you progress the lock far enough, it prevents this shot, which goes to the right. And there's actually a hole in the playfield back around yonder that drops into a little subway to take it to the Zuck in the back panel. So these are the only two you can actually flip like directly into. The third floor, which is when the first floor is lined up, the third floor up here is the X ramp. So this is left entrance to, it is actually the left return, even though it's on the right. So left entrance to left return, right entrance to right return. Right, so that's just a regular crossover X dot, little offset, nothing crazy there. When you light the lock, right, then it goes to the horseshoe U-turns, right? So this is a left entrance to a right return and right entrance to a left return. So this is just a pretty straightforward, like little loop-de-loop to connect the two corners of the building. I do want to point out this was a relatively late addition. The fact that this isn't like a triangle like this side, right there, it's asymmetric part.
Okay, why so?
So one of the things we have to consider when we're doing all these mechs is how do we handle multiple players, right?
Yeah.
So, right. Basically, there was a situation with the mech where, say you're playing a 2-player game and player 1 locks 2 balls.
Yep.
Then player 2's up. They can't lock the third ball because then they're going to have to start multi-ball, right?
Yeah.
Or they can't lock a third and a fourth because then the lock's full. So you either have to let them lock steal or you have to give a bypass to the lock.
Yes, I get that now.
Right, for that to make sense. So if you actually play a multiplayer game of Godzilla and, you know, player 1's got 2 balls locked and player 2 locks a ball, the building will go back up to let the ball bypass the lock floor into this ramp return and then drop back down.
Oh, wow.
So we can keep individual lock counts for all players without having to worry about like all 6 balls ending up at the lock at some point.
And that is something that, I think a lot of people are familiar with, like maybe on like 1980s Williams games, where there would be a situation where a player would lock the first 2 balls, and since there was actual physical locked ball staging instead of software locked balls, the second player could come up and hit that lock shot once, and you'd get a stolen multi-ball or something like that. So
TNA is the last game I know of to do that, right? With full lock stealing.
Yeah, and I think that was, and that was purposeful,
that was
right? That's part
of
the competitive design of the game. But I think that is interesting because, thinking about it, and, maybe I have short-sighted glasses on, but the last game that Stern did that had physical ball locks, was that Avengers on the premium?
Physical locks? No, Turtles has lock. Oh, that came out before Avengers.
Yeah, Turtles came out before, and that was in the van, right?
Zeppelin,
and that game used 8 balls. That's
Mando.
crazy. Mandalorian has
Honestly,
software.
I haven't played that much Mando, so I don't know if there's a lock on that game.
I'm pretty sure.
It might have been Avengers.
And and that's like, but with Avengers, right? With your what do you call it? The scissor lock or
the walk
step?
lock. Yeah.
With that, the game can see it's like, oh, I've got 3 balls in it, but player 2 is only locked 1, so I'm going to step and kick 1 ball out, and then the process continues. Yeah. Where with this game, they just sit.
On Avengers, that's actually why the balls lock out of order. So whenever you get your first lock on Avengers, it'll move it to lock 2 and hold it there.
Oh, huh. I guess that makes sense.
Then they leave lock 3 open, so when you lock your second ball in there, you can progress the first one out by leave a ball in the lock.
That's pretty clever.
Yeah, there's some real subtle things there. And then, like, if you go to Iron Maiden, there's also a bypass on that where the sarcophagus lock can dump the ball into the actually, that's not the bypass. The bypass on that one is it dumps the ball onto the top of the sarcophagus back into play.
Yeah,
and
like, you've got that
CPU lock, so you don't end up with 2 balls in there.
Sure. And I think that's an interesting thing. And I think that it's a lot more exciting to a player to have physical, actual locked balls, right? Because the pandemonium of when a multi-ball starts, instead of having them auto-launch out or something like that, having them all in one place in your face, it's pretty neat.
Yeah, that was a big thing with Borg on Turtles. I think it's an 8-ball game, specifically because of that, right? He designed that game to always have balls in the lock. So a player that got a multi-ball always had a 4-ball multi-ball start.
Yeah, one of the most incredible bits of choreography, one of the best bits of choreography in pinball, I'll say it. It's like when the game spits those balls out, they stick to the pizza, it starts spinning, and they all go flying everywhere. It's just, it's fun, right? And that's important.
Yeah, so we tried to do the same thing here, right? Try to give as many players as possible that 3-ball multi-ball start, just, for the mayhem of it.
So on your drawing here, is there, or in the CAD model, is there any way to animate the building, or should we do that in person?
All right, so this is the building, right?
Yeah, can you point out the main features as well, like what else we're looking at before we open up the actual game?
Yeah, sure. So like this is the thing the player sees, right? This is basically from this line up is the player focused art aid component. Everything below this is the make it happen part. So when I was concepting this mech, right, it's what do I basically need? I basically need to take this like 4-inch square box and be able to raise and lower in a straight line like 6 inches or so. Like that's the like high level engineering requirements for this. So then you start thinking, what are ways to do this? And the one that immediately jumped out to me was, if anyone's seen an Ultimaker like 3D printer bed, right? It's a giant flat platform that moves up and down like 6 inches. I'm like, this is a no-brainer mech to take inspiration from. So from there, I just started sketching out what that would end up looking like, and it ended up with these 2 linear guide rods. We've got a lead screw system under the hood here. And then a lead nut arrangement. This I actually stole off of another project I worked on a couple of years ago. This setup works pretty well, pretty cost effective, pretty reliable, and then really easy for maintenance as well because you can disengage the nut without having to remove it from the mech.
Oh.
And then from there, basically, we can talk about that later when you're down there. You know, it's like, okay, how do we control this? I have the physical system to be able to move between all these different positions. How do I drive that? And the logical choice is a stepper motor, right? There's a reason they use them in CNC applications. You know, you give it a command, it moves to that position, end of story. It's a really reliable, robust, you know, high power open loop control system.
Can you explain the difference between a stepper motor and maybe just a standard DC motor?
Yeah, sure. So a DC motor is basically you put voltage on a motor, it'll spin. It doesn't know how far it spun. You know, motor to motor, they're going to spin different rates, different speeds. Then that usually probably goes through a gearbox of some sort to take the motor speed down to the mech speed. And then that's interface. So basically positive voltage goes forward, negative voltage goes backwards. Steppers are totally different. And obviously there was a lot of education even within Stern on driving steppers. We had attempted to do it on the Jurassic Park T-Rex. There was a lot of room for improvement in that implementation. So that kind of spun up this new driver board we have. But a stepper motor in practice is, it's essentially like two sets of windings that are 90 degrees apart from each other. And then you've got a magnetized rotor core that when you magnetize one set of the windings, it snaps that rotor core in alignment with the magnetic field. Then when you turn off that set, turn on the next set, it'll snap to that next set. Mm-hmm. So with essentially two phases of windings, you can get, in this case, 200 discrete positions of that rotor over a course of a revolution. And then you can do fancier things like partial power to the windings to get steps in between there. We don't do that for this mech, but the board we developed is capable of that. So that's kind of the basic gist. Is a stepper motor is you control the position of the motor rotor, and like a regular DC motor is you control the velocity of the motor rotor. That's the big difference.
And the reason you are using a stepper motor is so the motor can basically tell the software what position it's in without using limit switches or anything like that, correct?
Yeah, so that's actually the trick. There is no feedback from the motor. That's one of the reasons there's super cost-effective ways to do this. Because you are dictating when those phases turn on and off. The controller board knows by counting how many times it did that change exactly where the mech is. Okay. So we'll say like go 600 steps, and that 600 steps in the software is the distance between floor 1 and floor 2.
Okay.
So the controller board goes, cool, 600 steps. Commands out 600 steps. The motor's moved the 3 turns, and that means the building moved between those 2 positions. That's why we have limit switches at either extreme of the mech travel. That's in case we do get a mechanical bind or jam in the system. Mm-hmm. If we prematurely hit one of the switches, the software will know, cool, whoops, something happened. I hit a switch earlier than anticipated. That means my counter for steps is actually here, and it can regain control of where it is in the actual motion of the mech.
Oh, that's fantastic.
The more complicated way to do this is if you were to use a DC motor, right, which is, it's simpler to control the motor. But the problem is because all motors spin different speeds and all the voltages, aren't necessarily always even. You would need some sort of feedback system because you're not controlling a discrete position of the motor, you're controlling the velocity. So you would need some sort of encoder or Hall effect or quad booster setup in there for the system to read where the motor actually drove the screw.
Sure. Yeah, and that, I think, that is one of the biggest differences. Like, I don't know, you brought up maybe some people were comparing the building in Godzilla to maybe the time expander in Doctor Who. And that's one of the big difference there. Doctor Who used a notched wheel in a series of optos on this DC motor that would tell the game when to stop power to the motor so then it could finish winding down, and that little bit of gear lash, it could be a little too tall, a little too low.
Yeah, so that's actually that right there is the main engineering reason for the stepper motor. You know, the Doctor Who mech's fine for that application. It doesn't require, the mech doesn't require precision alignment with the playfield.
Sure.
Right. The targets can be plus or minus an eighth inch, and you're never going to be able to tell the difference. Those, I think they're like ball locks in the front of it. That's the same thing, right? If you make that forgiving enough, player's never going to notice. Your mech can be a little bit looser as far as its repeatability. Where in this case, because we were shooting through it and it had to align to the playfield, we needed a really precise, repeatable, consistent mechanism to drive the building up and down. Just for example, you know, I was saying it's one of those motor turns, it's 200 discrete positions per revolution.
Okay.
When you actually back calculate that out through the mech, that's only about like 7/10,000ths of an inch per step that we have resolution of with the building height.
Wow.
You know, if you're off by a little bit, you know, you're gonna feel the ball clip, right? It might get launched airborne, it might skip, it might not go in at all, it might rattle.
Sure.
So we needed that really precise alignment to, you know, make this the best performing mech we could.
It's incredible. I'm gonna give you a pat on the back and say, good job.
So cool.
I think the thing that really blew me away the most from not on the actual design, or no, I mean, this is actually a really important part of the design, but again, we're talking about doing things seemingly extraordinarily complicated very simply. Can we show off how the balls are released from the top of the building?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. Let's do a little bit of, again, we're going to ruin the magic, but let's also do this. I'm going to pull up the in-game menu. Emoto, could you put the camera, the handheld camera on?
Absolutely. Stand by.
We're going to jump into game-specific tests here, and we can see some raw data coming out of that servo motor in just a second. So we go into game-specific tests, and we could go to the building. Now, when I use some of the buttons on the front door, it's going to change its position.
Yeah, Mango Slice, you need to upgrade your Pro to a Premium.
Moving to the first floor. So see, I want
That's
to
amazing.
move.
So while Kyle's setting up that shot and the settings, in about 10 minutes or so, we're going to do another giveaway. This will be for some Marco swag pack. So go ahead and sign up to the link dropped in the chat. And then after we go through all the mechs, we're going to do a Q&A with the chat for Harrison, so then y'all can ask your questions from there.
Cool.
And for those who have already been asking questions, I've been copying and pasting them into that as well.
Good job, Emoto. Hey, can I actually make another request? Can you make the tripod camera the big view and then put the handheld camera on the small view, please? Because this is where we will show off one of my favorite things that I figured out. So we've got the top of the building here. And as you've seen on the video 1,000 times, all the balls live up here when they're locked. So when the game goes to stage them down.
Yes, Mr. Baxter, you're disqualified. No. You already won. If you already won, then you will not be in the next drawing.
So check this out, right? We've got this gate here. All the balls live here, right? Of course, the game is angled down towards the flippers. So the balls are resting up against this plate. And this plate needs to move up to release the balls. So there's a very simple way of doing that.
Oh, that's cool.
You've got a little pokey spacer right here in this foot. So when the building reaches its massive collapsed state, it pushes, the plate gets pushed on by that pokey little spacer there, and there go the balls.
Oh,
yeah, we gotta keep it real simple.
Pretty simple. That's awesome.
There's no need to put
How practical.
There's no need to put another solenoid in there or anything. It does it on its own.
Yeah, so that kind of was a result of one of my big requests with this building, just to ease, manufacturing. Right, was let's not have a wire harness going into the building.
Oh yeah.
If you have a moving wire harness, that's just asking for reliability issues. Those wires will break no matter how many strands you put in them over time. So that whole main building mech, really, there is no wiring going into the moving part of it. Basically, and it's even built and assembled with its own node. So the only things that plug into the whole building mech are 48-volt power and the node bus connector that goes between all the different spike boards. Outside of that, all the wiring is fixed, static, and contained within the mech, which really is just the limit switches in the motor. There's nothing moving up in there. So as a result of that, yeah, we have this gate on the roof that has to release. And I'm like, okay, well, I can't put a coil in there. Let's just poke it. So there was this space, yeah, right. So there's a spacer over there. I put a like a 1/2-inch spacer on top of it and a little flap off the roof gate. Just kind of went up there and poked it and worked fine. Never seen it fail. So
It does its job. It's great. And as we see back here, I'll rotate this camera a teeny bit. This is where that up kicker is in this building here. So Harrison mentioned there's a small subway. So you've got, when the ball, I don't know if this comes through. Let me take a look. Oh, it's a little slow on my end. So behind here, the ball goes into a hole, which takes it to a subway behind the back plane. And then there's an up kicker back here. So there is actually devices on the back plane as well. So the ball will come up through this weldment and enter the top of the building. So I'm going to say you have to start making these things more complicated and prone to breaking, or else in like 20 years, I'm not going to have any pinball machines to fix because you've designed the failure points out of all of them, Harrison.
I'll take
well, that was actually kind of one of the questions we had in the chat is like how much thought goes into when you're designing mechs for the kind of general wear and tear or accessibility of fixing parts or having multiple parts that have a high mortality rate or something like that.
Right, yeah. So, I mean, we're all aware here at CERN, right, that these are not, as much as we say they're commercial equipment, they're not. They're intended to be out on the street and reliable as possible. In the event they do break, you need to be able to repair that thing as fast as possible, right? So that's kind of where my ethos of mech design comes from, where everything's kind of its own self-contained module.
That's awesome.
So like the building mech's the prime example of this, right? It's to take the whole building mech out of the game. You take the lock gate off the top, the 2 cables out the side, and then there's 4 nuts that pull out. The entire mech comes off. So you can bench service it like out on location, right?
Yeah, that's fantastic. Having things able to be serviced on the bench is so nice. And I mean, look at this too. I mean, like, it's the little things that make a big difference to people like me. There's a handle on the back of the playfield. This makes it, or on the back plane, it makes it so easy to remove it from the cabinet if, for whatever reason, if you needed to service the playfield out of the game, which is not often, but look at, there you go. There's something that makes it a lot easier. I know Keith was a huge proponent of putting the full service rails back on games too. So, yeah, I have to say thank you to everyone who makes these games easier to work on.
Yeah. So the kind of the origin of the handles actually is a crash guard.
Oh, really?
There's a really tiny one on Star Wars Premium, so you
yeah,
back
for the
accelerator to the back of the cabinet. And then when we were doing Iron Maiden, the tomb diverter on the left ramp actually stuck out further than the accelerator.
Oh, really?
So I made this like massive version of the Star Wars handle, which was really just a crash guard, so you didn't destroy your mech on the back of the cabinet. But when that one got that large, it ended up just becoming this awesome handle for the game. So we've it's installed on everything except Avengers. And I honestly couldn't tell you why it's on Avengers. But I left the peanuts for it though.
Well, it's like I find them really handy. I'm a tall guy. I can use some different body mechanics, but like whenever I put the pinball wallpaper on the art blades, I always take the playfields out. It makes it easier to line everything up just right. Yeah. So having something like that to rest it on, especially on Star Wars, it's handy. Really quick, because I know the drawing is coming up too, but let's just look at the building from the underside in a physical form, not just on CAD. Even though the CAD view is going to be 10,000 times better, but well, we've got the game here, so there's your driver, right? For your on the left side of the building's frame, that's the driver for the servo motor.
Stepper motor. Yeah.
Stepper motor. I'm
servo
sorry.
Motors are a little different. Yeah.
Yeah, those are for hobby grade things. But let's see, so the way it's driven, right? So we've got the motors on the inside of this frame, and then there are are these two pulleys with the belt going in between? Trying to frame
Yeah,
this
so
up.
it's not strictly necessary for the mech to function to have that timing pulley stage in there. The real reason that's there is I had to fold the powertrain back so you didn't smack the motor into the bottom of the cabinet. There's a cleat rib on the bottoms of the Spike 2 cabinets. That's the first thing a playfield mech will hit if it starts getting super long.
Okay. And
if you look at a
Harrison's
Batman
talking about
66,
this right there.
yeah, it's way in the bottom there. If you look at a Batman 66, there's actually a cut in the cabinet for the motor on that turntable to clear, which I was trying to avoid. So I ended up folding the motor back onto itself, which, it wasn't necessary, but I think it actually cleaned the mech up a little bit to have the motor and the lead screw mounted to the same plate. It gave me a really, precise center-to-center distance control on that pulley stage.
Yeah, it's really fun to look at. We were looking, and I guess we've seen everything on the CAD model. There's not much to see otherwise. The thing we were looking at really quick too, because I did see someone in the chat asking something about calibration and adjustments, and Harrison mentioned, the thing essentially will calibrate itself if it ever becomes off. But when we're looking here on the screen that shows all of the testing information, right? So we've got the position here. So that's when Harrison was talking about steps between via rotation, you said there's 200 steps per rotation of the motor?
Yeah, yep.
So as we move the motor, you can see that position change as it moved down one floor, right? We're going to move down one more floor. So we can watch as the motor keeps track of where it's at in its movement up and down.
Because you can see it moving up and down, and now you can see the screen too. That's cool.
That test menu was actually super critical for factory calibration too. So that's kind of a two-part test menu. Right now, you just have it in the general move mode, right, where it'll just cycle between the 4 floors.
Yes.
If you push when you go up to floor 1, right, so you're there, and you push the start button.
Okay.
It'll move into adjustment mode. You see that on the screen?
Oh, and I can micro move it using the buttons.
And you can micro move to level where floor 1 is, right? So basically that'll ensure that floor 1 is super precise to the playfield because of that skip issue.
Let's adjust it. How exciting.
Is that what they mean by the turntable? A few people have been asking in the chat about the turntable, but I wasn't sure what that...
They're probably talking the Roto 3 bank. So I think we'll get to that in a second.
Oh, yeah.
Because we've got a giveaway to do now, right?
Okay, that makes sense.
So yeah, Kyle, when you got that leveled, if you back out of the menu, you'll see it's updating adjustment.
I think the thing is it was actually adjusted in the perfect spot. So when I put my finger in there to actually see, it's where is it level? It was already in the perfect spot. So it defaulted to -2. So
yeah, so they go through that calibration at the factory, and then that adjustment gets stored to your cabinet. So every Godzilla Premium LE is like factory adjusted for that specific playfield to ensure that 0 position is exactly where we need it to be.
Yeah, that's incredible. And then really quick, Emotive, switch it back to this view one more time just to explain what else is going on this screen. The tripod camera.
It's funny, we could do a drinking game with you saying really quick for today.
Okay, do it really slow.
Really quick. Okay. Well, that's what I was doing anyway, so
we've got three other bricks here that will show the limit switches. So when the building is all the way up or down, once it's hit that limit, and then a test here for the optical switch, which is in front of the building. So anything needed to adjust this building is all on one screen.
So that hit detection opt is also one of our safety mechanisms on this game. So when you're over, if you go back into adjust mode.
Okay, give me a sec here. Okay.
You should just push start, right? And then if you're trying to feel the building, if it's level, try to move it with your hand in there.
Got it. Yeah, it doesn't do anything. Right? Can't slice your fingers off.
Yeah, so I mean, everyone always says the Doctor Who mech was like a hot dog, it'll chop your fingers off type mech.
Yeah.
So there's a
Warning,
glass
keep
safety
hands
switch on
away
that game.
from mini playfield.
Yeah, so we did the same thing, but we already had a brake beam opto right in front of the building. So we're like, let's just use that as a safety mechanism and test.
Yep. In the Doctor Who I used to service, I had a piece of cardboard that was folded just right so I could shove it in the micro switch where the glass would go in to defeat the thing so I could work on it.
Yeah.
Anywho.
And I will say, this mech will not chop your finger off. I put my own finger in here and dropped the Billiken. Because there
What
was concerns
happens?
internally. Nothing, it just stalls.
Oh, okay.
And
So
is
it's
that
safe.
Your finger?
I put
So-
my own finger on the
So you
line.
put your finger in, and then it comes down, and then it registers your finger and comes back up?
Yeah, well, that was before the safety lockouts were in there.
Oh, sure. That's
Yeah.
That's
So now
awesome.
it won't move at all, but it's not that powerful.
Yeah, now, is that
Exterminate.
because of the, I mean,
Said
just the
show us your
internal
hands.
torque of the motor, or is that because, I mean,
Yeah, you basically just end up with the motor doesn't have enough power to actually chop your finger off.
Yeah.
So
see, Stern cares. Williams didn't. They just want to
They
chop your
do
fingers
care.
off.
Oh,
That's
can
fine.
you hold up both of your hands to
I
prove
have
that you
10
have
fingers to prove it.
Oh,
Okay.
he's good
There we
at
go.
10. All right, with that being said, let's go to do a giveaway real quick for everyone who's signed up. I see y'all coming in.
Steve,
I
put my name in.
recognize a lot of these names. This is awesome. And we are going to see who is the winner of Marco swag pack, which includes a Marco hat and a t-shirt of your choice.
Rad.
I'm spinning, and then after that, we're gonna go to the Mecha Godzilla area
And the Roto 3 bank.
in the Roto 3 rank. Michael Moomy. Congratulations, Michael Moomy. If you're in the chat, go ahead and send me your shipping address to marcotv@marcopinball.com.
Congratulations.
So go, let us know you're in the chat, and we'll do the rest. All right, so let's move on over to the Mecha Godzilla.
Let's move. So, Mechagodzilla is pretty simple, but explain what's going on here for people who do not know, please.
Yeah, so Mechagodzilla is really just an iteration on the Walking Dead Well Walker mech. It's literally the exact same hinge part. Basically, a big sculpt on the hinge that when you hit it, tilts back. That's the extent of it. The twist we added on this for Godzilla was adding the magnet core to his chest. There's a lot of, again, there's fight scenes in the movies where Godzilla and Mechagodzilla are kind of magnetizing stuff to each other. So we knew that was going to be a perfect addition to put in a pinball machine. So we, added the magnet inside him. It was the right size, right location, and kind of rest is history there, right? Pretty straightforward. See a switch in front of it, turn the magnet on, catches on its chest, let go when you're done.
So, is there a switch on the tilt on Mechagodzilla, or does it
there
use
is
input?
on Well Walker. On this one, there is not.
Okay.
Because we had the spinner directly in front of Mechagodzilla, it wasn't necessary to have a switch on him. So it's literally just a 2-wire coil lead going up into that mech.
That's, again, super simple.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no way for you to hit that magnet unless you hit that jump ramp. So, yeah, it's neat. Again, it's a way to change the pace of the game, slow the game down a little bit, and also just add fanfare for those people like Steve sitting over there who's probably seen every single Godzilla movie 10, 15 times.
Oh, yeah. He's so
Having
excited.
things stick to Mechagodzilla is probably very exciting. And what about the Roto 3 bank? Because again, that's something that is totally new. That's never been that's a fresh design, right?
Yeah, so that was another Keith idea. Basically, he wanted some sort of state change device that wasn't just the building on here, right? So the progression. This is going back to designing player progression, right? How can we tie a thematic element into a player progression and then make that into a mech? So, in the movies, Godzilla's fighting Mechagodzilla. Godzilla gets a few shots in. So Mechagodzilla's response is, I'm going to put up my deflector shields or whatever. I forgot what the exact correct term is, but his shields, right? So you do some damage. He puts up his shields. His defenses are up. once you keep fighting him, doing more damage, his shields eventually lose power, and he's vulnerable again. So, then you're allowed to attack him. That translated perfectly to, get a couple hits in on Mechagodzilla, get him a little startled, close the shield, put the 3 targets up. That is a shield, right? Once you do enough damage there, his shields are weak enough, but they're no longer up. Mech opens, and then you can fight Mechagodzilla directly again.
It's so practical and makes so much sense to like my novice mind when you walk up to a pinball machine. That sometimes it's so daunting, like I don't know what to do, but that just makes perfect sense visually when you see it happen. Like I instantly can feel like take down.
Yeah. So it's again the good pinball design is about taking thematic elements, making them a decent and understandable player progression, and then building a mech that accomplishes that. Which I think we have 2 of on this game, but.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, and it takes a big piece of real estate used for one thing and allows you to do multiple things with it. And the fact that you got this scoop to fit in right next to it is is also fun. But again, it turns something away from. If this was just a bank of 3 targets to fight Mechagodzilla, it's also not very inviting, right? It's there's 3 targets that are really close to the flippers. I don't want to shoot those. I'm gonna get rebound straight down the middle, and then there's a scoop right next to it. It's kind of the same thing, But then when that thing turns and you can do something different, it's like, man, that's that's awesome.
Yeah. So and so the nice thing too, right, is because that mech turns, that opens the ramp by turning clockwise. Those 3 targets now become accessible from the upper flipper. So it essentially adds like 3 additional stops to the game, to that upper flipper.
Man, there's ideas upon ideas, things that I didn't even recognize I want to shoot for when that thing turns. There we go. So how is that put together? Is it just a platter with a motor underneath, or?
Yeah, so if you've ever seen an Addams Family, I think it's the bookshelf.
Yeah, the bookcase.
The bookcase, yeah, it's almost the exact same mech. So I have the CAD models up, Moto, if we want to go over that.
Yeah, let's go to it.
Let's take a look.
I almost
it's triple person again. Oh, there it goes.
Yeah, so basically there's this moving platform over here, which is everything the player sees, targets, ramp, spinner. But the actual turning the mech is extremely straightforward. So we got a little DC motor in here, open and close switch, and a little 4-bar linkage connecting them. When you spin this, let me get a better view here. Spin this. Right, so it spins 180, you're open. You spin 180, you're closed. Right, pretty straightforward.
It is very similar.
There's one really
to Addams
important
Family.
element of this, which is not obvious. So when you're open, right, you hit the ramp, it'll go up the ramp, right? The ball's not actually impacting this mechanism. When you're closed, right, so like that, the linkage is locked out. So any torque that gets put on this turntable to try to backdrive this mech means this mech can't be backdriven. So it locks the linkage out.
Oh.
So it's a really rigid target. Otherwise, you have this situation. If we had done the bat, the target side when the linkage looked like this,
it would move
every time you hit the target over here, it'd try to backdrive slowly the linkage and close the target ramp off, right? But because it's a mechanical lockout in this direction, that means these targets are rigid and will feel good when you actually shoot at them.
Man, see, I always feel like I have some engineer blood inside of me, but that's just mind-blowing when you point out those sorts of like intricacies, right?
Yeah, it's a really, you can even see it in the SolidWorks, right, where it happens.
Yeah, no,
like
absolutely.
If this link is trying to go backwards, it can't because it's at, it's locked out mechanical state.
And I'm glad you didn't build it
over here, and you're trying to put a force back through this. It's always going to try to turn. So, a real subtle thing that's in there, but super important to gameplay.
Absolutely. I'm glad you didn't build it like the Addams Family bookcase, because those teeny little plastic crank arms that they use. Yeah.
I looked at getting those parts to build this out of there because I'm like, hey, that tool already exists. But you know what? We do read quite a bit of Pinside here when we're trying to do stuff like that, and looking through owners threads, seeing the reliability issues of that thing. It was, you know, I gotta make this thing out of metal. So,
yeah. Well, and the other thing too is, you know, you were. Let's look underneath. Let's look and see the way that the wires are dressed, right? Because we were talking about, you were mentioning with the building, you know, reliability concerns, et cetera, when you were running multiple wires in an assembly that move up and down. It's just they will break. That being said, look at the way that this is dressed, right? We've got 4 switches on this entire assembly here, right? So we've got 1 switch for the spinner. Oh, sorry, let me use the other camera because we set that one up so I didn't have to have shaky camera hands.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, no problem. So look at the way that these are dressed, though, right? They don't run through anything. As this mechanism rotates, they shift very little. And this is something that will not become a gigantic pain in the butt like the opto wires inside the Addams Family bookcase. It's fun.
That kind of design too. That's also where this is the exact same. The home and away board is the exact same board that's on Avengers, and that board was very specifically designed for wiring to be accessible from the bottom side of the playfield, right? So the motor is, you know, 1 motor power lead and 1 connector. Here you've got a different motor. Yeah, okay. So yeah, there's just 4 wires in for those 2 switches and the motor. Again, this mech is, I saw one, which I think I saw one comment about accessing the switch. Basically, this mech is intended to also be bench serviceable, right? So with the 5 screws into the playfield and the wires, you can drop this whole mech out as it's shown to work on it. So if you need to get the spinner out, that's why there's clearance holes here to get to those screws.
Yeah, and take a look at this too. This is, Harrison was mentioning, like the other important thing about bench serviceability is not only being able to remove the unit, but everything is on a connector, right? So when it comes time to service this thing, I got to take it out on the bench. We've got 2 plugs for the switches. You've got 1 plug for the motor. Unplug the board, it's out, right? It's that's excellent serviceability there in 20 years when it actually might have a problem.
Right. So, and then this also has this is an old Williams design, this leveling stack. So if your ramp for some reason ends up too high or too low, you have the ability to crack this jam, you know, this plastic jam net, level the mech to the playfield, and then tighten that back down.
Yeah. So what other games that would use that? I mean, it's like the rotating wheels on like Whirlwind. Addams Family, of course, used that. I guess those are the only 2 I can think of off the top of my head. But
yeah, both Avengers spinners have that in there now.
Oh yeah, I was actually just working on an Avengers spinner the other day. Nothing, just like the post that the ball can hit to spin it got beat to heck. So I replaced that and good as new. So, anywho, yeah. I mean,
did y'all say is there a switch for the spinner? I saw a few people asking about.
So this is a regular ball guide mount spinner. So there is a micro switch buried in there, tucked in, and then there's a little hole for the cable leads to go out, which come out yonder.
Cool.
So then they'll meet up with the target leads and go to the main harness.
So there's what on the Beatles? The Beatles used spinners that used optical sensors to tell when the spinner was spinning. What is the reason why you maybe don't use opto spinners in some of these applications?
So this is actually when you do the Rust one. This is going to be one of Elliot's talking points. So that version of the opto spinner, the reason we don't really use those is it requires double-sided cable access. So those use a through beam opto system. So there's a sender and a receiver, and you need wire leads going to both ones.
Yeah.
When you're doing something like this, like how do I get a wire down from this side of the spinner without it being like this big ugly thing going across the top, right?
Yeah.
So for here, a mechanical spinner with a single-sided axis, makes way more sense. This is actually a fixed problem on Rust. Rust's right spinner is an opto spinner that's using a different style of sensor. But I'll leave that one for Elliot because that was kind of his baby. I would expect that style opto spinner that's on Rust to be the standard going forward. Don't quote me on that, but it is definitely proving to be popular around here.
Very cool. Yeah, I was expecting more of an answer. I mean, I knew that it needed to go on both sides, but I was expecting more of an answer of like, oh, well, it's a little bit more in the bill of material, and this kind of just works, so why?
That is true, but if you see the rest of this game, bill of material wasn't that big of a concern.
Yeah, that's the other comment I wanted to get out of you. So
yeah, we did it for technical reasons, not for cost reasons.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, and that's kind of it with in regards to things purposefully and custom made for this game. Aside from all of the, time what you spent making the 4-inch subway and all the ball guides and stuff like that. When it comes to things that the players see and interact with, there's a lot in this game.
For sure.
You can go ahead and stop sharing. If you like. That was awesome. Thank you so much for that. It's so exciting to see the
That's
3D.
So cool.
Yeah, like being able to go inside of it is just great.
And I think the reason we did that to begin with was we didn't have an Avengers Premium. So you started pulling up CAD drawings, and now that we have a premium,
you're such a trendsetter.
I really like seeing the CAD drawings, because you can see so much more,
Yeah.
When they're installed in the game, you can see so much.
Yeah, it's the only medium that the game exists in for its first 6 months, basically, right?
Wow.
Yeah, and so what, if you can talk about it before we jump into Q&A, I mean, as you said, you got this building working, while Avengers was hitting the line. I mean, what was the development cycle for this game?
Yeah, so Keith and Rick and I knew we were doing Godzilla for a while. Actually, before Avengers, we had done a first pass start on a layout for this right after Jurassic Park had shipped, and then due to licensing contracts and scheduling, Avengers got put in front of it, so we kind of had to shelve this. So we knew we were doing Godzilla, and Keith had well over a year of knocking around different ideas, iterations, plans for the playfield. Which that's where the building mech idea came from, right? That was March 2020, right when COVID started. We kind of had we had a lull in the Avengers cycle, did a little bit of work on Godzilla, didn't build a whitewood or anything. It was just Keith and I going back and forth. And then Avengers, a month or so before skip, there's not a lot to do on the game teams then, because you're just kind of waiting for production parts to show up. So that's when we really kicked into high gear on Godzilla development. So what that'd be July 2020 was when we started for a July 2021 ship, or at least part arriving on the dock date. So yeah, roughly a year, but conceptually it was going at least another 12 months before that.
That always fascinates me. Just the speed in which the work of art is put together.
I should state, right. So that's the schedule everyone always quotes is 12 months, 15 months, right? But that's just the time in PD.
Sure.
Sales and licensing are working, 2, 3, 4 years out on deals and multi-game contracts and that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So for a game to become an idea in the sales department or PD, right, to in a box in someone's homes, that can easily be 4 or 5 years.
It's pretty. That's the thing. There's a lot going on behind the scenes, right? The people will never talk to or never see or don't get all the glamour like you.
Sure, glamour. Yeah.
You're the star today, Harrison.
And you deserve it. This thing rules, man. Good job. I'm very, 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 very much excited to the next time we get to talk to you again with whatever you're working on right now in secret.
Secret.
Yeah.
Secret. Awesome. Well, Harrison, we'd love to keep you around for a few more minutes to do a Q&A if you can. I know y'all are slammed over there. So everyone, if you'd like to ask a question to Harrison, drop it in the chat. We'll pick out the best ones and ask him for this little session. And this is the last chance to sign up for the random drawing giveaway. We're going to do one last one, and this is for the Godzilla Translite, signed by Harrison, signed by Keith Elwin, and the rest of your team, Rick Nago and everyone like that. So that's a big one right there. So everyone sign up and questions. So one of the questions I had from earlier, Harrison, was, we got that one. So I don't know how to ask these, but a few different people are asking about solutions for if their balls get stuck, primarily with the Mecha Godzilla area.
Yeah, we're aware of that
behind his
one.
arm and stuff, and
behind his arm is news to me. The one that I know of is on the rotobank. There's like a gap that opens the ball guides.
Oh yeah,
we're working on something for that. It's a little challenging to come up with a solution to that still allows that mech to fall through the playfield. There's a lot of people that have put extra posts in there, which is kind of hard to assemble in our factory. I've seen bump-ons in there. I've looked at extending ball guides. We're aware and working on it, but nothing available yet.
Cool. That's awesome. Yes, anyone can ask a question in the chat. Feel free to drop it in. PC Handyman, yes, we talked about adjusting the height, or did we talk about adjusting the height of the turntable? I know we did of the building.
Briefly. It's got an Avenger style like bearing that you can screw in and out to seem tight. It's pretty straightforward.
Awesome.
What's your favorite Godzilla monster?
Hedorah is the answer. She's only on the playfield. And there's no video. There's a licensing issue there, but yeah, it's just such a ridiculous looking monster.
Oh yeah. Okay, so resident Godzilla enthusiast Steve says he's with you, and that is a great choice. So
here's a fun question for you, Harrison. What's your favorite mech in a game that you didn't design?
Ooh, okay.
I know. I was like, ooh,
Favorite
that's a
mech.
nice one.
Only because of how like ridiculous it is, and because it's kind of the main thing. This is like a unexpected answer, is my guess, but it's the Champions pub, like boxer dude in the middle.
Oh yeah.
I think it's just
What's
so
that
obnoxious
guy's name?
looking. Yeah, I forgot what his name is, but
I think my favorite
probably-
one on that
probably
game
some
is
stereotype, but
the jump rope on that game is really awesome.
Yeah, like the mechs on that game are pretty neat. The game's whatever, but the mechs are pretty cool.
Yeah, no, it's a terrible game, but it's got some really fun eye candy to do. Yeah, I don't know what my answer to that would be, but that's a good one though. That game is full of some really unique stuff.
So a quick one is, how many years have you been working in the pinball industry?
This will be it'll be 4 in June. No, 5.
Nice.
5 in June.
It's half a decade. That's awesome. And how many Godzilla movies did you watch to make this ultimate Godzilla pinball machine?
All of the ones we licensed, at least.
Nice.
Basically, how that starts is, when we get a signed licensing contract, usually a licensor will just tell us to like rip the Blu-rays for the raw footage. So they all end up on our Stern server, so we can stream them, at home, at work. It's pretty fun. Yeah, so we all get access to them.
Do you have a favorite Godzilla movie now?
Yeah. Godzilla versus Mecha Godzilla is awesome. That's the first one. Yeah.
Nice. Awesome. All right. Some of these questions are Well, I'm going to jump into the giveaway. I think I gave y'all enough time. This is for the Godzilla Translite. We're going to do the giveaway and chat for a few more minutes and then let Harrison start going back to work on
Yeah.
his next project.
Yeah, thanks for sticking around for 11 minutes longer than we told you you'd be here.
Oh, I
And is
wasn't
it-
even looking at the clock.
Are you allowed to say, or is it fair to assume that you will always be a staple in the Keith Owen Dream Team?
Let's
That y'all
just
have
say
assembled?
that's not a guarantee.
Yeah, he has to earn
Nice.
his keep or George is going to give him the axe.
Oh yeah, that's true. Well,
This is-
yeah, Keith too,
yeah.
right?
There's obviously been
gets-
some shifts in our game designer lineup, so.
Yeah. Hey, maybe Harrison Drake, newest game designer for 2022.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's people designing games here that no one knows about yet. So
Oh my god, I can't wait. Oh no, here we go.
Gary
Okay.
Stern,
what's
newest
your
pinball
what's your
machine.
background prior to working at Stern?
yeah, okay. So I worked in automotive for a little bit. I did toy design. I did power tools at Bots. Yeah, I've kind of been all over the place. Honestly, that toy design experience that I've had was, super key in me ending up in Stern. Working on something that
Yeah.
creates fun for people is, a super awesome place to work. So wanted
I
that
bet
back.
George loved that.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, that's really cool. All right, let's find out who the winner is for this epic translite that's going to be signed by all these rock stars. And the winner is. Can you guys hear the wheel spinning?
No.
Oh, okay. Sounds cool.
I'll do it. That's slow, but
All right, Greg Jones. Greg Jones, congratulations. If you are in the chat, let us know, and that translite is yours. Send us your shipping address to marcotv@marcopinball.com. So I'll put that in the chat as well. That's awesome.
congratulations.
Oh, yeah, we got to do this question from Bex. She loves this question. If you were going to do a soapbox derby, Harrison, which pinball cabinet would you use?
I love this
It's a
question.
new staple question on the show
I knew which cabinet would I do?
for a soapbox derby. Oof.
Oh man. Honestly, probably Godzilla. I was gonna say high speed, but then I realized the game's about secrets being a car chase through California. So I don't know if that's the correct answer or not.
I mean, I was always thinking, I think I gave Bex an answer once, but I think my answer changes to no fear now, even though it's still, it's connected with Steve, but it's got flames on it already. So
True.
it already
flames
has
do
like,
make anything faster. So
yeah,
At least 10 horsepower.
yeah, at least 10 horsepower. Oh man. Well, that's it. Again, this is wonderful. This game rules. Thanks for all the hard work that you do to continue
thank you,
letting us
Jason.
have fun, slapping silver balls all over a wonderful sheet of hard birch plywood. If it wasn't for people like you, we would literally just be hitting balls around on plywood. We'd have to have all these fun things to do, interact with the ball. So, thank you.
yeah, no problem. My job.
Yeah, it's like I get paid to do it. What are you?
I'm being paid. Yeah.
That's always my favorite part of, I always tell people, I get paid to play pinball. It's kind of true, right?
Yeah, that's kind of true for me too, right? There are 15 minutes here.
But yeah,
All right, y'all. Well, that's the show. And we will see you next time. Hopefully, we'll see you at a show. Are you planning on going to any of the pinball shows? Are you going to come out to Texas Pinball Festival for the Twippy Awards to potentially go home with a bunch of awards for this game?
I'll see what's going on that weekend.
I think you might need to show
Awesome.
your face. Or at least come up to MGC in April. It's not that far away.
Yeah. The second MGC in 6 months?
Yes.
I know.
And it's
isn't
gonna
that
be awesome.
crazy? I was like, we'll see. Alrighty, y'all. Thank you, everyone in the chat, for joining us. Thanks, Kyle, to Harrison. It's a pleasure. Thank you, Stern Pinball, for making this happen.
Yes.
And we will all see you next week. And for those who are on Twitch, let's raid someone real quick.
Yeah, go find
so
someone
we can
to raid.
show some love. Who shall we raid?
I mean, at MGC, I'm sure you saw the pictures, but we had like a 30-foot tall inflatable Godzilla.
Yeah, the giant Godzilla. Yeah.
We even had like a little Gary Stern bobblehead, like with a parachute drawn, jumping out of a building. But then I think someone promptly stole Gary or beheaded him, unfortunately.
No, he fell off, Kyle.
Oh.
And I had to bury him in the back.
Oh, well.
It was sad.
Sorry, Gary Bobblehead. I still have 2 of them on my desk. I love them.
All right, we're gonna go over to Warlock Pinball 777.
Oh, heck yeah.
Who's playing some Future Spa.
Dude rules.
That's great.
He's one of the coolest dudes. Go enjoy hanging out with him.
Very cool. All right, we'll see you all next week. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Later.
Let's play this. Baby.